silence of the house hung heavy on me like an empty canvas. The only sound that could be heard was the ticking of the clock, which seemed to mock the rhythm of my pounding heart. I was alone. My family had gone on a trip to the north for a few days, and I had stayed home because of my university exams. It was dusk, and the sun had not yet set completely. An orange light streamed in through the cracks in the curtains, casting strange shadows on the walls. Suddenly, I heard a noise from downstairs. It sounded like something scraping against the floor. A shiver ran down my spine and my hair stood on end. Cautiously, I went downstairs. My heart was beating like a sparrow in my chest. The sound of scraping came again. This time it was coming from the kitchen. With shaking hands, I grasped the doorknob and slowly opened it. The kitchen was plunged into absolute darkness. Only the faint light from the refrigerator dispelled some of the darkness. I slowly stepped into the kitchen. The sound of scraping was still audible. Suddenly, a black shadow darted out of the corner of the kitchen towards me. A scream of terror escaped my throat, and I fell backwards. My head hit the ground and a terrible pain shot through it. I closed my eyes and waited for a terrible disaster, but nothing happened. Are you there?" I stammered. There was no answer. I slowly opened my eyes. The kitchen was empty. There was no sign of the black shadow. With fear and amazement, I looked around. The sound of scraping was still audible, but I could no longer find its source. From that night on, I could never forget that black shadow and that horrible sound. I still don't know what I saw in my house that night, but I know one thing: that creature was not of this world. After that horrific night, fear and terror took root in my being. Every corner of the house, every shadow, every sound had become a nightmare that swallowed me whole. I couldn't sleep at night, and in the pitch darkness, I listened to the haunting sounds. It was as if that black shadow had infiltrated my very being and was slowly taking over me. One night, as I was exhausted from fear and sleeplessness, I suddenly heard a noise coming from my room, a sound like muffled moans and a painful wail. With stammering tongue and trembling body, I got out of bed and headed to my room. The door was ajar, and the faint light of the moon shone in through the window. Cautiously, I peered into the room. My heart sank in my chest with terror. That black shadow was standing in the corner of the room, taller and more terrifying than before. Its eyes shone like two bits of coal in the darkness, and its painful moans seemed to come from the depths of hell. I wanted to scream, to run away, but I was paralyzed. I had no strength in my body. The black shadow slowly moved towards me. Its moans grew louder and more terrifying. I could see nothing else, hear nothing else, except for the pitch darkness and the moans of that demonic creature. When I woke up the next morning, I had a headache and a sore body. At first I thought it had all been a nightmare, but the bruises on my hands and neck showed that the night's terror had been real. From that day on, I never stayed alone in that house again. At any cost, I kept myself away from that black shadow and those horrific moans. But still, deep down, I know that creature is still there, waiting in the darkness to come for me again. The story of this creature and the horrors that befell me in that house continues to this day. It is as if there is no way to escape this endless nightmare. And every morning that I open my eyes, I go out to meet the unknowns ahead with fear and terror. Years had passed since those terrifying nights. I had fled that house and that city, hoping to escape that black shadow and its painful moans. But the nightmares wouldn't leave me alone. In every darkness, in every silence, I saw that demonic creature and heard its wails. Fear and terror had gnawed at my soul like termites, eating away at me from the to that house. Maybe by facing my fears, I could overcome them. With a backpack full of fear and doubt, I set out on a terrifying journey into the past. When I arrived at that house, it was covered in the dust of time and plunged into absolute darkness. Nothing was left in that house but terrifying memories. I went to my room, the same place where that black shadow had first revealed itself to me. I closed the door and waited in the pitch darkness. I don't know how long I waited. It felt like time had stopped in that room. Suddenly I heard a familiar sound, muffled moans and a painful wail. The black shadow appeared in the corner of the room. Paralyzing fear gripped my entire being. But this time I wasn't going to give up. With all the strength I had left, I charged at that black shadow. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to be free from that eternal torture. With all my might, I grabbed that black shadow and slammed it to the ground. Its wails grew louder and more terrifying. I felt like all the darkness in the world was gathered in that room. With a scream from the depth of my being, I plunged that black shadow into absolute darkness. For a moment, absolute silence reigned in the room. And then, everything calmed down. The morning light shone through the window, and for the first time in many years, I felt a sense of freedom. That black shadow and its terrifying wails were gone forever. I left that house and that city and went in search of a new life. I still sometimes see that black shadow in my dreams and hear its wails, but I'm not afraid of them anymore. I know that they are just memories of a nightmare that is over. I am finally free from fear and terror and have joined eternal